זה קטע שבסוף יימחק לי כל אז רגע, נעשה עוד פעם הקול בקול. גמר המרוץ לתירוץ. התרוץ למרוץ למילון. שתיקה, נשימה. מורכב. טקסט. שמה מים, שזה שמיים. נכון? אנטר. אל, אך, אל. אדמה. קרקע. קרקע. אנטר. סימבולס. קרקע. השמונה נדחפת קודם במקרה בטעות לבד מעצמה. עכשיו נקטין את זה כי לא רואים אותם בסטיקר. רגע, עולה לי פה משהו רציני. אי אפשר. ככה. ככה הם ייכנסו. אפשר עוד קצת להגדיל. שינוי צורה, יפה. סבבה. ייי, הכל בסטיקר. שמיים על קרקע. ועוד מעט נלך ל-11, שזה קרקע על שמיים. ייי, להוסיף. שזה לב ועיפרון. נוסיף. ייי, ועכשיו נעשה את 11. נלך אבל לפה.
The 11th gate, peace, is the gate of ideas. It's in the Ajna center, so it's part of our conceptualizing process, and it's part of abstract circuitry, an abstract circuitry that has the keynote of sharing. So this is a gate of the need to share ideas. It's a very difficult task to realize. Realization is an abstract process, and as such it is not based on fact. It's a sensory process. It is a very subjective, reflective process. If you look at the lead-in to the 11th gate, it is described as a harmonic condition in the individual or society that permits assessment before renewed action. Before action. Assessment before action. Always assessment before action. If one looks at the historical importance, at least in terms of the evolution of humanity, of the 11th gate. The 11th gate is deeply significant. That is, the 11th gate in its polarity, the 12th gate, when you look at the two of them as an opposition, this opposition was part of what was a very profound mutation that took place in humanity. Actually, the mutation itself was rooted in the 12th gate. This is an individual gate, and in a stream that is deeply individual. Part of that emoting stream, the 55th gate, is where there is all this evolutionary mutative pressure today. And the mutation that took place in the 12th gate and its impact on its opposition, the 11th gate, remember something. If you look at the Rave mandala, and you look at the mandala with the Rave I Ching chops, or you open up your Rave I Ching and you look at the hexagram structure of the 11 and the 12, what you will see is that they are exactly opposite each other. In other words, they are truly a mirror of each other. You know, the 11th gate has a lower trigram of 3 yang lines and an upper trigram of 3 yin lines, and the 12th is exactly opposite. That is, the lower trigram of 3 yin lines and an upper trigram of 3 yang lines. So we're looking at a mirror. The impact in the 12th gate, the mutative result, which was the dropping of the larynx and the beginning of the capacity of humanity to be able to articulate in a subtle way. That is the beginning of articulated language, which is why the 12th gate's a gate of articulation. The 11th gate is a gate of ideas. The impact on this was the enhancement of both the capacity to remember and the ability to be able to reflect on the memory. But primarily it was the expansion of memory. In other words, in order to be able to develop the capacity to be able to articulate in detail, which ultimately was our evolutionary path, as one witnesses today, it was first necessary to be able to expand the memory capacity to be able to store the keys to any language. That is, to be able to store the relationship between sound values and objects, or sound values and concepts. And so the 11th gate is primarily a memory gate, and it's very much a visual memory gate. That is, a visual memory, the 11th gate and its collective opposite, that is the 17th gate in the logic process, this represents the human vision. And when we're looking at the 11th gate, we're looking at the left eye, and we're looking at the ability to be able to see but not see anything completely in the moment. In other words, within the vision of the left eye, there is always something that's not there, that has not specifically been seen, because this is a very subjective eye. You know, it's like two people looking at the same landscape, and the one with the 11th gate will not see the entire landscape. They will see what is there for their eye to see, and that is what they will reflect on and store in their memory, is that perception, the way it's been skewered according to the limitation of the left eye. This gate of peace, this gate of ideas, the great dilemma that has arisen in the not-self process is that the gate of ideas has been interpreted as instructions for life. Oh, what a victory for the not-self. The 11th gate has the capacity to be a great teacher, but a terrible, inefficient doer. The 12th gate, stand still. And the 12th gate is in the throat center, and it's pointed down towards the emotional system, towards the solar plex center, to its harmonic gate, the 22nd. And that when we're looking at this, we're looking at the potential through the 12th gate to be emotionalized directly, and thus this is the potential of manifestation. There is no greater power than the channels that are operating, the two channels that operate directly between the throat center and the emotional system. They can be deeply volatile, and of course remembering that when we have definition in either one of these channels, that the authority is going to be the emotional system and the design, and that without patience, without the ability to be able to wait for the wave and wait for clarity, that this can lead to a great many disruptions, emotional disruptions in one's life and impact on the other. And in dealing with the 12th gate, this is the gate of caution. Now, in human design, we have a direct relationship between the various hexagrams and what we call codons, that is, genetic codons. And when we're making a comparison between hexagrams and codons, the 12th gate is one of the 3 stop codons. Now, what I mean by that is that if we're looking at genetic information and we imagine that it's being written as sentences, that there are special codons that have specific roles in that. For example, the 41st gate is the only start codon. And in that sense, in the metaphor of a sentence, it would be the capitalization of the first letter at the beginning of the first word in that sentence. And when the sentence is complete, there are 3 different kinds of punctuations. That is, there are 3 different stop codons, and the 12th gate is one of them. The quality of restraint and the importance of meditation and inaction in confronting temptation. Now, everything about this gate is that it is all about the potential to be open, and the potential to be open in such a way that one is open to the other so that one can articulate directly to the other. The 12th gate is a gate of throat articulation, and it's in the 12th gate that we had a mutation take place about 90,000 years ago, and that mutation was the dropping of the larynx. That allowed us to have a much more evolved, if you will, airspace in order to be able to modulate our tones, in order to be able to create the variations necessary to be able to establish language. And it is the 12th gate that carries this mutative quality of being able to mutate the other through words, which is why the 12th gate is often associated with poetry, with expressions of love, the whole idea of articulated romantic dialogue is something that is rooted in the 12th gate, amongst many other things. So when we're dealing with the 12th gate, we're dealing with something very important to grasp, that despite the fact that it has this specialized gift of being able to articulate mutation to the other, the 1222 happens to be the only social channel of the individual process. And remember that individuality by its very nature is not a social. It's not social in the sense of the collective that shares or the tribe that supports. Individuality is rooted in the theme of empowerment. And empowerment isn't necessarily a deeply connected social involvement with the other. As a matter of fact, the great power of the 12th gate is with strangers rather than with familiars. It is this capacity to be able to mutate the stranger that gives such important potential to this channel in changing the way in which we communicate with each other and the things that we communicate with each other. Now, of course, all of this is going to be dependent on the connectivity to the solar plex center. Those of you that have the 12th gate in a defined throat, that there is always this capacity to be able to articulate, yet at the same time this articulation is deeply, deeply conditioned by the emotional field. The 12th gate can be very, very sulking. If it meets a 22nd gate that's at the low end of its wave, it can refuse to be social. It can become antisocial. It can refuse to articulate. Also, to keep in mind that if you have the 12th gate active in an open throat, that you are always under pressure from the other to articulate, and that it's inconsistent. And that can lead you into dilemmas if you are simply not prepared. Caution, restraint is the secret of the 12th gate.
That brings us finally to the for this morning, to the 1211, one of my favorite oppositions in the wheel. It really is the beginning of our potential to be aware. Sometime around 85 to 90,000 years ago, we had a mutation of the larynx. It's a mutation that's only carried by the female. You can see that in babies. That is, when human babies are born, they can drink and breathe at the same time. So, a baby can nurse at its mother's breast, and at the same time it can breathe through its nose. And then at some point that stops. That's when the baby starts spitting up, because they can't do both at the same time. All of our primate relatives, they can all breathe and drink at the same time. We can't. And this mutation is very important for us because it is the dropping of the larynx. And basically what it led to is our ability to be able to modulate tone. In other words, we often don't really think about how incredible verbal language is, and at the same time, if you're a dog listening to us, it all sounds the same. There's very little variation. And yet to us, there are nuances, so that in the English language, I can enunciate, if I could, over 2 million different sound combinations that we call words. It is amazing the sophistication of our ability to manipulate sounds, put sounds together and put them out and have them interpreted at the other end. This mutation took place in the 12th gate. Mutation takes place in gates of individuality. The next mutation coming will be in the 55th gate. And it is the 12th gate that is the supreme gate of articulation in the throat. It is the mutative articulation. And everything about the 12th gate is dependent, again, on its individuality. It knows or it doesn't. It is waiting for its mutation. But when that mutation is there, the 12th gate has the ability to mutate the other. In other words, this unique ability to be able, with language, to be able to communicate a mutative force to the other. And for that mutation potentially to take hold. On the other side, and the 12th gate is where all of this articulation is taking place, on the other side, you have the 11th gate, the gate of ideas in the Ajna center. Well, this is the gate of teaching. And you can see that highlighted in the 4th line, where you have these very, very profound themes of teaching. But teaching in the sense of being able to retell history. And so this mutation in the 11-12 combination, basically what it did is that at the same time it opened up our capacity to be able to be sophisticated in our articulation. It opened up a mental capacity to interpret the articulation. Yeah? And of course that could only be done through the 11 and its collective ability. To be able to see everything under the sun, in that sense, to be able to see that. And basically the way in which it works is that, the moment that you go from crying out as a warning, the way other mammals will do, that the crying out would get modulations, different qualities to them. So there would be a difference between, here comes a water buffalo, and here comes a thunderstorm. And this is the combination of the 12 being able to articulate it, and at the same time the 11 being able to categorize it. So this opposition is one that's very profound in that sense. It really opened up, this possibility that, you can transform the most complex concepts into a form of communication in which you can actually deliver it and the other takes it in and gets it. And remember that everything about survival is rooted in strategy. And that humanity as a species, Homo as a species, wasn't going to be able to conquer anything until it developed this mutation, because this mutation enhanced their strategic potential. There's a wonderful animated movie called, what is it, ice something? Ice Age. And having a young child, I do get to see a lot of these things. And some of them I get to see hundreds of times, sort of. But there's a great scene in Ice Age. Ice Age is about a bunch of animals that look after an abandoned baby. And there's this wonderful scene where this mammoth that's carrying this baby around is really pissed just carrying this baby around. He's annoying. He puts the baby up on the limb of a tree, and he goes through this whole dialogue about what's so frightening about these things. I mean, they got this soft, pudgy little whatever, and it takes them forever to learn how to look after themselves, and you can poke anything through that stuff pretty easy, and they can't even walk around barefoot. They got to put stuff on their skin, and he goes on and on and on and on describing how impotent this form is. And of course, it's true. It's true. I mean, just the idea, it's hilarious for me that we walk erect. I mean, what a job. Most of the planet suffers from back problems, If no other creature does this. They're not that stupid. What a process to walk around this way, We're always trying to keep our balance, always. I mean, we're funny creatures, right? We are really deeply vulnerable. It's so easy to eliminate us. And yet, we're the king of the mountain. And ultimately there's this scene where you get to see why humans are so frightening. Because they operate in intelligent packs. And they have combined strategies. And it is their very intelligence that overwhelms the brute speed, force, whatever of the other. And all of that is the 11-12 combination. Out of that mutation came our ability for deeply, deeply sophisticated strategies. Only out of that could we ultimately discover agriculture, and agriculture was the next step in transforming our lives. And all of that simply because we could coordinate strategies, but more, we were storing history for the first time. When you think about any other mammal, and their reincarnative process, they're always starting off in the same place. And we never start off in the same place. We have this unbelievable collected experiential information that each generated gets imparted to them as they develop. And yes, we're vulnerable. It takes 7 years, for a human to reach a point where they can basically protect themselves. But it's the boxes. It's the ability to codify experience. So when you're looking out in the world through the eyes of the 12-11, what you're really looking for is there anyone out there who can be transformed? Is there anyone out there that can be truly stimulated? Is there anyone out there that truly needs to know how it all works? And there's great resistance in the 12. This is a stop codon. This is the gate of standstill. It's terrified of the emotional consequences on the other side. It is the 22 that makes this channel social or antisocial. It is the 22 in its emotionality that's ready to listen or not. The 12 is very aware of that. There are moments for it. When you look out through the 11, what you see is a world of ideas. You see, the world is just ideas. It can be very distracting. It's one thing to understand that there is a world of ideas, but also to understand there's 31 other worlds that are there. But you see that world of ideas, and you see something else. You see that one of the best ways that you can communicate to another human being an essential message is through art. When you look at the 1222, this is the theme of romantic creativity. And here lies poetry and song and all kinds of forms of music and words together. Originally it was chants. It's had its history, its progression of the way in which it works. And it's one of the reasons why that if you look at the world around you, you will notice that, young people, most of their major conditioning in their teenage years is from music. Music. And who they're listening to out there. And who they're listening to out there is more powerful than their teachers. The 12 and its music is more powerful than the teacher, and it's the 11 and the teacher and its theory. And it also means that it is clear to the 11-12 that a society that does not support the arts is a society that is going to fail. Because it is an essential medium for getting information across. And of course we have that. It's just in this day and age, we see that lived out in a totally different way because of all of the fractals out of the entertainment potential. Whether it is, the computer domain and it's, and PC games and PlayStations and on and on and on. There are all these varieties of ways of getting information across to people. And everything about the 11-12 is seeing that human beings need to be stimulated. And that they need to be moved, and that they need to know what is going on. They need to know their history. The 11th gate, you look out at the world with eyes of the 11, these are the people that are always saying, human beings just keep repeating the same mistakes. Because they see it. Because they're in tune with it. They can see those ones that are going to do the same dumb things over and over and over again. And the 12 looks out in the world and it sees where there may be a possibility to mutate the other. Maybe a possibility to transform the other through, art, through creativity,